Not entirely. No, you gotta squeeze somewhere.
Good. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everyone for being here and those watching on TV. Mayor's report, short as usual, but just to make everybody aware, actually Wednesday will be the 2nd anniversary of the shooting of our officers. I don't have much to say except for keep the families in your prayers. Adam is doing better. Haven't been in touch with the family for a little bit, but we will have the pavilion on the riverfront. We are going to make that, we have a plaque and we're going to dedicate that to Mason. Don't have an exact date yet, so we will put that out. We'd like to have a good turnout for that when we do that. Anyway, keep their families in your thoughts and prayers. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years already. But anyway, we have to move forward. The only other thing I really have is, you know, the weather's getting warmer, so there'll be more people in town. So when you're in the downtown district, just watch for pedestrians because they don't pay any attention. And not this weekend, but the next weekend is Worst Fest, so there'll be a lot of people in town. The festivals, if you don't get to participate, go watch the Weenie Dog race. And Friday night they have the Braunschweiger Ball. I'm going to be a judge on that again this year, so it's interesting. So if you'd like to partake in that stuff, please do. City Administrator.
Thank you. Our sales tax deposits for the month came in really good, and we are still at 2% over last year to date, and it was 2% last month as well, so that is holding. And keep in mind that last year was the all-time record high for sales tax, so that's what we're comparing it to, so it's good. The energy efficiency grant that we had applied for, that we were kind of excited about, that was 100% no match. We received notification last week that our street lighting project would not be awarded. They cited a limitation of funds, and they're only funding the top 3 highest scoring applications, and if more funds become available, they will notify us. I think most of you are on MML's email list, and maybe you've seen this, but it's rather important. The food sales tax exemption, the possibility of that has come back up again in the state legislature. And MML is obviously in opposition to it, and they're urging everyone to send letters to Senator Brown, who is on the Economic and Workforce Development Committee that is hearing this issue. So it's pretty, it has a big impact. Food sales tax for us is approximately 12% of our total sales tax. Most cities, MML says, it has an average of 25%, so you can see how significant that's going to be to cities if that actually goes through. You know, they're proposing that there are other ways to, you know, help maybe low-income people with grocery needs or something like that. Sales tax is going to be a minor savings, you know, on a grocery bill. We have worked on the SRLF application for our wastewater bond project, and thanks to Travis, it has been submitted. And now we're on just a little bit of a pause. The projects are not awarded until October 2026. Now McLean assures us that everybody who applies gets approved. We will have some meetings with McLean through the summer, but we knew it would take a couple of years to get the money flowing, and then it'll be a full year for construction. So that is, we got the big part done, that was getting the application in. We have 2 more comprehensive plan element meetings scheduled. The next meeting is the Community Facilities and Emergency Management meeting, and that's on March 21st. And then there's going to be an Economic and Tourism meeting, and that will be on April 1st. We've already completed the Transportation and Utilities meetings, and then there will only be 2 left, and that'll be Land Use and Housing. Those are yet to come. Outside meetings I'll be attending this week are HRED, the Chamber, and MRPC. And just a reminder to the public that street sweeping begins March 17th. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Public Works Director?
Water and Gas has been working on 2 new services, and they've replaced several gas meters. They've been running around putting a lot of these new ERTs for the water system and staying pretty busy with that. Their new truck had a dent in it when we picked it up, so we had to take it back to the body shop to get it repaired. It is now in Jeff City, finally getting the utility bed put on it. So hopefully one of these years we'll get that truck. The street department's been working on their street sweeper, as Trish just said. That's going to be starting here shortly. They've been working on getting everything put away from the snow. Hopefully we're done with that. We'll see. But they're going to start that street sweeping process here in the next week or so. The electric department has pulled out the old 350 MCM conductor that was down on Reserve Street and pulled in that new 750 that we budgeted last year. So part of that work is in. The Parks Department has been getting some bids together and talking to a couple masons about the archways entering the park there, about possibly getting those redone. And then there's some maintenance issues with the rotunda and the bandstand that need to be addressed, so he's been talking to several contractors on that. On the streets, we're kind of looking at shuffling some stuff around on the Schiller Street project. As everybody knows, that project did not progress this winter as we had hoped. So we're looking at maybe shifting some of the asphalting into the next budget year for Schiller Street and 11th, and off the top of my head, I can't remember the 3rd street. But the 3 streets that we were gonna asphalt, we're looking at pushing that back until the fall. And by fall, I mean, as soon, I guess July 1, it wouldn't be fall, it'd be summer. But we're gonna try to get the contract for the concrete, where that contractor can do the concrete and then just roll right into July. And we'll just do a budget amendment and move that money forward and still get it all done this summer. But I don't think there's any way realistically to get Schiller paved in this budget year, so that's gonna be our plan at the moment.
Is that gonna affect any of the fall projects that you had for fiscal
Well,
year
I mean,
25?
We're hoping not, but I'm not, I mean, if we have another winter like we had this year, then, I mean, yeah, it probably will. If we have a mild winter, we've talked about it in-house quite a bit. One of the projects that we have is gonna be really simple in the scheme of things. So we're putting that one off. Our plan is right now, we're gonna come down Schiller Street with the water line, get it done, and then the water crew's gonna turn right onto 4th Street and do 4th Street first, get it out of the way, and then Stark Boulevard will be the next one. There's not supposed to be anything in that street, according to the maps and everything we know, so we'll find out.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate what you do. We'll move to public comments. Rose Belson.
I would like to speak about the landlord ordinance. My name is Rose Beltran, I live here in Hermann, and we have a house that we would like to make into a rental property. And so after our workshop last Monday, I went and looked up the IRC codes and the NEC codes, because I need to know exactly what I need to do when Mike shows up. And I found some discrepancies in what Mike said and what's actually in the code. First of all, handrails. What Mike said is anything 30 inches above grade has to have a handrail. The code says anything with 4 steps or more. So that's a difference. And my stairs are 27 inches above grade, so according to Mike, I don't need a handrail. According to the code, I do. So what is it? I would like, if the city adopts this ordinance, please put in there exactly what we need to do so that we're all on the same page. You did it for the guest houses, and I can go, I know I need a fire extinguisher on both floors. It's very clear, and I would ask that the city do the same for this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Holland, you're up.
I'm sure to listen,
Oh, well, you filled out the thing.
just in case I want to say something.
You want to say something?
Here to listen.
You're just going to listen. Okay, no problem. Okay, but we're going to move on to old business, which is the discussion of the draft rental inspection ordinance. We had the workshop, so, hopefully everybody went home and got to thinking of whether you're in favor of doing this, or if we need to make changes, or whatever.
I'll start. I'm obviously not in favor of it. If we do proceed, I think, like she said, we need to have things more clearly lined out.
Details, more details.
So that we can switch building inspectors and not have a drastic change in governance. That said, I think this is a time where we're looking for people to jump into the rental game, and governing them more could possibly make people jump out of it. So I'm concerned about that.
Very good. Anybody else? Ash?
I agree with the not leaving any gray area. There's landlords who don't know the code, and we don't need to leave them out high and dry. If I was the landlord, I wouldn't necessarily know the code off the top of my heart. But I will say that governance isn't necessarily a bad thing. My business is inspected, and it makes my business a better business, and I appreciate that every place I go to town to eat is also inspected by the Department of Health and Senior Services. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing for obviously the tenants. I do have issues with making the landlords flip the bill on this. On paper, I don't want the landlords being on the hook for the safety of our tenant rentals. There was a comment in the workshop that maybe we have a holiday of the inspection fee for a while until we get, existing buildings up to date, up to snuff. That's not necessarily a bad idea.
Can I add one thing on that?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm also concerned about us being the reason that a deal falls through. The speed that we're able to get in there, I don't want them to have to rely on us to get in with a day or two and then possibly lose it.
Lose their tenant because it
That's
took too long.
That's a concern.
And I completely agree with that. That's their business. I don't want to be interfering with their income and livelihood. According to Mike, and I agree with him, he's gonna, be speedy and, expedite that sort of thing, but future inspectors, who knows?
He could be sick for a week.
And it puts a lot of power in the hands of one person, is kind of what I felt like this from the beginning. It's not just the building inspector, he's also the occupancy permit issuer.
Dolores, you have anything?
No, I agree with the Ash
Jimbo?
and Derek.
Kind of, sort of, maybe.
Way to go, Jim.
Yeah. Like to straddle that fence. The intent, I feel is good, is to help provide safety environment. Now, this lady talked about Mike saying 30 inches for handrail, where the code also says you have to have a 7.5-inch riser in between steps. So if you got 4 steps, that comes at 30 inches. so you need a handrail. I think, at least on my behalf, there's still questions out there that we need to get answers to, maybe some more definitions. As far as one person, we're at their discretion, that happens in anything in life. Whether you're a building inspector, a law enforcement officer, a judge, or a jury, you're always dependent upon that person's discretion. It's going to be open, how they read the ordinance and how they interpret it. Everything can be read differently, and we see that happen day in and day out. But I think until, I'm not clear 100% on it. The premises, I think is good. So I would like to see if we postpone this for another meeting yet until we can get more clarity.
Okay, well, so I'm understanding that we need to table this and do some more research. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's what you're hearing from me.
So what exactly instruction do we give Mike Leach?
Well, one thing, more details. And we need to discuss this billing issue.
Did you say billing issue?
Yeah, whether we're gonna charge that 50.
Yeah, that's you guys. Mike doesn't have anything to say
Okay,
with that.
well-
I do have one question, maybe Dave can answer it. If we make an ordinance where this is set in place where GFIs have required handrails or what have you, if we have that ordinance in effect, is that fully in effect, or can we put a clause that's not going into effect for 5 years? If we have an ordinance that says it's mandated, but we don't enforce it.
You can delay the effective date after the, just about every ordinance that we have, you'll notice has a line in there that says this ordinance is in full force and effect as of the date of its passage and approval. You can say, you can have the ordinance and then at the end just say the provisions of this ordinance shall take effect on 1/1/26 or, and I think to go out more than a year is kind of strange. You probably ought to just bring it up later and research it in the meantime, but that is possible.
If I could just bring one thing to your attention, and that is that at the first April meeting, there'll be somebody else voting on that.
That's true.
Well aware.
I don't think anyone up here on this board, at least my perspective, is happy or comfortable passing this as it is. So I think it certainly needs tweaks.
So, and maybe we can talk about it later, but I don't know what direction to give Mike, because this is identical to what he does in New Haven, so I don't know what to tell him when you say details. I don't know what we're really talking about.
There was way too much when he was like, oh, I can see what's going on. It's like, no, that's not how that is. I think he even mentioned drive-by, like, we can't be doing that. There's white and black, there's no gray. That was really my main issue, is just kind of, and I think he's just trying to be amenable, but I don't really think that is the right thing for this.
In that position.
Yeah.
Isn't New Haven under the, a different code?
They have a property maintenance code in addition to this long-term inspection code.
And they have had that for quite a while.
Can you explain the property maintenance code?
Not a lot, but it just has to do, it would be the whole city, it'd be every property in the city, and there are certain standards for like the exterior of the house, like if windows are broken or gutters are hanging, the porches, the railings. Do you know any more about it than that?
No, I think yard debris and things like that come into play too.
It's much broader.
It encompasses a lot of stuff from what I understand.
And that would be
It's
rentals
much broader
and
scope than just what we're
It would
talking
be
about.
every
all
structure.
commercial businesses and everything.
Is this just for maintenance of the property, or is this for, I mean, I know, probably don't know, but, or is this for future, kind of like we have in the historical district here in town, where if you're doing upgrades, you have certain standards you have to abide by, or is this just for maintenance of the property?
I can't specifically speak to it, so I'm sorry, I'll have to get more information and get back to you.
But isn't Franklin County under zoning, aren't they under a zoning? Didn't the county pass the zoning requirement, and that's why New Haven and all the other communities have to do something more than just what they want to do?
I don't know if
No.
one has anything to do with the other. You know, that I think it was noteworthy that every other city in Franklin and Gascony County does have this. In Franklin County, I don't know if it's because the county I don't think so. I think in fact, I remember when it came up in Washington, and it was just discussions like we've been having here, and it wasn't because the county mandated it.
Okay, they could do whatever they
Right.
wanted to do.
I will say that I would say Hermann is absolutely unique in that we're not like any of the other communities listed, in that we have a limited rental inventory. So I think we can be a little bit more cautious and
Yeah, most of our excess housing is taken up by guest houses, and there's not a lot left.
And from everyone that spoke at the last meeting, I think that we're fortunate that we have the type of landlords that we have
yes,
compared to other places.
exactly.
You know, I think that they're all, from what I don't know everybody that well, but I believe everybody is responsible and doing the best they can with their property. And I think that we should support them. So, you know, I have mixed emotions. Yeah, I think it's good that you have the rules, but I don't like to put more burden. I've always been one that I don't like the big brother thumb thing that we're making you do this. So that's me personally. But you all have to make the decision whether you want to proceed with it or not, you know.
I want to proceed, I just want to tweak it.
Okay. So we're gonna table the rental inspection ordinance at this time. Now, does that mean we'll have it in a next meeting? I can't tell you, I don't know. We'll talk to the building inspector, or I'll talk to the building inspector, and then we'll bring it up again as just as a discussion at a future meeting. Probably won't be too long, because we need to either do it or not do it. And then, so hopefully we didn't waste your time this evening, but we're gonna try and make the right decision and keep everybody happy.
Thank you.
So thank you for everybody putting your input in on that. Anybody else have anything on that? Is there any other old business to discuss? We'll
Are we
move,
allowed to bring up old business if we have some?
if we discussed it, yes. Depending on what, yeah, what do you want?
No, I don't have anything. I was
Okay.
just asking if
Well,
I'm having.
all right, let's move on to new business. We're gonna, Brian Chorley's here from the Utility Advisory Board to talk about electric rates, everybody's favorite thing.
Speak loud, Brian.
Okay. My name's Brian Chorley. I'm the president of the Utility Advisory Board, and one of our objectives is to advise you all on utilities and specifically the electric and all the utility rates. And one of the things I'm gonna request from the board is of course a rate increase on the electric this upcoming budget season. Right after the April election is you jump right into the budget, and so we want to get in front of that season now, and so we can discuss this however you choose to. Basically, we've been talking about this for a while in our board meetings. If you've seen some of the minutes of the meetings and things like that, we've gone over a lot of different possibilities, and we're kind of facing almost a perfect storm of a bad perfect storm for rates, because ever since COVID, parts inventory costs have gone up. A lot of our material increases, We've got a list of a bunch of items that we normally keep in stock have risen anywhere from 40% to 300% since then. We've had a decrease in our electric usage, so it's been about 21% decrease in consumption, which our costs are dispersed in the rate. When we collect less, when we sell less electricity, we take in less to cover our costs, our overhead costs. And also, since the last time our rates were increased was in 2015, when we increased the meter fee. Our raw cost of electric, our electric rate has not been increased since 2010, and at that time it was an actual decrease in the rate. So we've been operating on these rates since 2010, and our raw cost of electricity since that last increase of the meter fee, our raw cost of electricity has gone up 29% since then. And what we're asking for to help, and another thing I was going to ask Tricia about is that we've had to make a lot of budget moves to just keep us afloat. We haven't had, we've had to take money out of our insurance reserves because none of the poles or the wires are able to be insured. So we have to have our own insurance fund, and we had to take money out of that and other reserve funds to just keep operating the way we have. What are some of the other things like capital?
Yeah, what Brian said, if you all will recall, we were transferring $10,900 into both of those electric utility funds. And as we discussed in last year's budget workshop, we had to quit doing that. We couldn't afford to do that any longer. And in addition to that, we had to take $100,000, 50 from each of those funds, and put it into the electric operating funds just to get the electric fund barely in the black. And we had to cut all the capital projects. The only one we kept in there was like $10,000 for the Schiller Street bore. So the electric department hasn't been able to do any improvements, any forward thinking. They're just doing maintenance is all they're doing. So even with this 7.5% increase, that's only going to get us about $325,000 a year, which we hope might let us break even, but that's without going back to putting money in our reserves, and that's not going to allow any margin for capital projects. But it will get us out of the red for the moment.
Yeah, so that's basically what we come down to, is that to get us to level, we need 7.5% increase at this budget year across the electric rate, not the meter fee. Meter fees would stay the same, right, but the actual rate that we haven't increased since 2010 would increase 7.5%.
So if we're gonna do this, does it make more sense to go a little bit higher, so instead of just?
It does, because we would need to increase, like as Tricia said, to cover some of these, the insurance fund and all these other funds and capital improvements. We would still need to do that, and like I said, we're still facing decreased consumptions. We don't really know the full effect of premium leaving and that as well. So we need to be open to increased rates because of all
that's what I'm saying. If it's 7%, it's only going to get us here,
right?
And we need to operate here.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do as much as we can,
and to be as fair as you can with everybody else.
Right.
I get that. I just yeah.
And so that's why we're bringing it to you, because you guys make the decision. So we're just an advisory board, and we've looked into, like I said, we've looked into this for over a year now, and we feel like with the budget season coming up after the election would be a good time to broach the subject and start the discussion and see what numbers you guys want to look at, and see what numbers the public wants to look at and, you know, have an open discussion.
We know where the public wants to be.
Yeah,
But, you
yeah,
know,
but
it's
there's only so
it's
much.
everywhere in, you know, everything we do, you know, it's something
and-
we have to deal with, you know, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think a smart thing to do too would be to plan to have an annual increase of a few percent or less, or whatever the number is, so that we don't come into this situation. I've been here since 2002, and this is the third time we've had to have a decent sized increase because we haven't increased it periodically over time. And so I think we need to get into that mindset of a consistent increase to help offset our increased costs. And there's only so much you can do by not buying stuff and not maintaining your system. I mean, and we're at that point where we have to increase to just get to level, you know, just get to where we can operate the system effectively, so.
Yeah, I agree that, and it surprises me that it's been, since 2010, this hasn't been reviewed. I mean, that's 15 years.
We've reviewed it, we've talked about it, and it's a hot button issue. Nobody wants to tackle it, and the only way we tackled it last time was through a meter fee. So it was like, well, we can't figure out how we want to increase the rate, so let's just put a meter fee increase on it, and that'll stop the bleeding for now. And it did. But
I think that should be reviewed, all utilities should be reviewed annually with the UAB and then surface up to the board. Say, hey, currently right now, we see no reason for it. Because I've been on board 6 years, it's never hit this board. So that's what I'm saying, now all of a sudden, we have to respond for being proactive or reactive instead of being proactive. Because based upon the information I got here, if you go 7.5%, we're gonna be higher than what Ameren is.
well, I don't know about that, but they're constantly, every year they're increasing. And you know, this increase, okay, so the average residential increase would be $7.91, right, about $8 a month. And that equates to about $95 a year for the average residents.
Also have to add on to the average resident, the cost of the sewer increase from this bond issue. The water went up too. So, you know, 46% of our voters are 62 years of age and on fixed income. I know we gotta do something, but I'm kind of blindsided that in 10 years we haven't done anything.
No, it's been discussed in the
Yeah,
10 years
if you-
I've been here.
and
Every
if you
budget
read the
year we
minutes,
talk about it.
Yeah, we've got minutes of our utility board meetings that we've discussed it a lot. You know, we've gone over it a lot.
I mean, to be fair here, Jim, you're on the utility advisory board. So you've
Yeah,
heard
and
all
I've
of this.
never heard it discussed
You've
up
never-
until last August at that time.
Did we get a copy?
I'm sorry, but I only hear what I hear, and I'm not upset, but I said, we gotta do something, but kinda underneath the gun. Now, we got to do something where maybe it could have been eased in the years to come. I know, an automatic built-in, no, I don't want that to happen. I think annually, we should have a review by the UAB, surface to the board. We don't see the UAB minutes,
Right.
Yeah, those get forwarded.
not to me, well, I'm there,
You're
but
in the
I don't.
meeting. Like, I'm shocked right now. I know for a fact that we've been discussing this with you in the meeting, being there for at
Yeah.
least since November of '23. Like, this isn't anything that I feel like I've blindsided anybody with here.
Yeah.
I've talked to all of you individually multiple times.
And-
We've been in the red for 2 years. This isn't new. You guys see all the money, you see the numbers.
Yeah, and if you guys ever have, if any of you ever have any questions, you know, you can come to our meetings and ask us questions. It's not like we meet in secret or anything, you know? So, I mean, we're trying to do what's best for the city. We're trying to do what's best to keep our utilities in good shape for the future. And right now, we're to the point where we need to do something with the electric. And so that's
So right
basically
now,
what.
right now, we are cheaper than everyone around us, with the exception of the city of Fulton and Quiver River Electric Cooperative. For our average residential bill, on the average month for that month, because we have to take seasonal rates into account on figuring these bills. But if you take our city on an average, our residents are cheaper than everyone other than the city of Fulton and Quiver River in our immediate proximity. If we raise these rates by 7.5%, that average, I think the average resident will be paying, I want to say it was like $70 a year more than they would with Ameren. But Ameren's also got a 15% rate increase sitting before the PSC right now. So they're going to get probably 7 to 8 of that. That just seems to be how that works.
And didn't they just raise their
They just-
meter fee as well?
Yeah, and they're going to try to again. They're trying to get that, everybody's trying to get that base rate up. One of the things, we kind of put our base rate up early, and that's one of the reasons we didn't recommend an increase this time, was because I feel like we're where we need to be. We're right there with all the co-ops, we're right there with a lot of municipalities. If Ameren could raise their service fee and not touch their kilowatt hour rate, I promise you they would. But the PSC won't let them do it because their structure has been this way forever. We looked at this a bunch of different ways, and this is basically a Band-Aid on a broken arm at this point. We're gonna have to raise them again at some point, but my feeling was, what I don't want is what we've done for my 20 years here. We wait until it gets terrible to the point that it's this catastrophic increase that breaks everybody, and I don't want that. 7.5%, I went back to 1982, so the length I've been alive, this is the smallest rate increase Hermann has ever had. So, as far as by percentage. I don't want to do these big 12, 15, 20, 40% increases. That's not fair to anybody, and if we can avoid it, we should. And part of the way to do that, in my mind, is what Brian said. We need to get better about doing small incremental increases when we don't necessarily have to have them, instead of waiting until we do have to have them, because this is where it ends up. And if I'm going to be completely frank, the reason I think that it's better off being an automatic thing that you guys can vote down if you so choose is because, frankly, this board has lacked the political willpower to do it for most of my career. And this is where we've ended up. And I want to see that cycle broke. Nobody wants high rates. I live in town, my dad lives in town, you all live in town. Nobody wants that, but we also have a system that we have to run. And it doesn't serve anybody for us to burn through our reserves every 10 years and get back in the hole, dig ourselves out of it just in time to dig our way back in.
Is this your spreadsheet? These percentages, this is the redistricting?
Yeah, so.
Want to read those off to them?
So when they raised the rates from 82, 82 is my baseline, 84 it went up on a 1,000 kilowatt hour rate, or 1,000 kilowatt hour bill. For the residents, it went up 25.07%. 89 it actually dropped. That was when they got into the power pool. 91 it went up 20%. 03 it went up 36%. 06 it went up 23%. As Brian said, in 2010, when we took the rates out of the purchase power adjustment, we dropped it by 11.39%. 15, when we did that that service fee increase, the effective rate increase for that was 16.53%. This rate on the average bill will be 5.75% increase. So, I mean, that's what you're looking at. And we're talking about the cost of our power has went up 30% over the last 10 years while we didn't raise anything. That's 3% a year. It's almost like that's an inflationary number.
Energy's not getting cheaper.
Nothing's getting cheaper, and that's just it.
I could actually see energy getting cheaper with some of this stuff, the windmills and everything. They're being required to drop some of that in Missouri. I don't know how
So-
much. I
so
don't think
if-
it'll be much. It might be
If
able
you're
to keep it
talking about
flat,
the
the grain bill.
grain belt, yeah. So we've got some contracts on that, if it ever happens, for some pretty cheap power. And that was specifically a deal that was cut out for the Missouri utility system because they needed to drop that power here to get Missouri buy-in. But if that doesn't happen,
Yeah, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Especially with easements and everything like that, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Brian, Jesse. I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, but I do agree with Jim in that we do have an aging population in Hermann, fixed income. The meter fees. Could they perhaps, could we restructure our whole electric billing?
well, I mean, you can do anything,
Right, I mean, we could.
but
Would it make sense for the average residential user if we reworked our services so that they're paying a rate and not a baseline fee?
so
We'd be charging more per kilowatt hour.
you gotta
Yeah.
make that up
You
somewhere.
gotta, yeah, you've gotta make it up somewhere, and then you have a basic cost of service that goes
Right.
under that,
So-
like, you want the lights to
The meter
turn on
fee,
when you.
what the meter fee really should cover is all of your fixed costs.
Mhm.
Your meter fee should cover every pole in your system, conductor repairs, fuses, substations, transformers, all the fixed costs that you've gotta have. And when you add up all your meter fees for the year, and you depreciate that over 30 or 40 years, that number should be about what your system's valuation is. So, I mean, if you wanted to hire somebody to come in here and do a big evaluation of the system and do all that, it could absolutely be looked at, but my gut says that it would probably come back that your fixed costs need to be higher.
I just posed
Yeah,
a
no,
question.
I get it.
But
That's
Because I
how-
realize it's not, when a customer flicks on their light switch, they're not just paying for the electric that's flowing, they're paying for everything the city did to get that electricity to their house.
Correct.
But in that customer service fee, I think you would rather refer to it than meter. But what we got, 2,000 electric customers?
About 1,500.
About $1,530 per, you're talking $500,000 a year just in that fee alone. If you take that over 20 years, how many millions of dollars is that? That's on top of the
But that's
project.
what we,
Purchase our.
yeah, that's what it costs to run the system. You're looking at, generally, over the years, our electric has averaged about $5 million in sales a year. And the average, our expenses are 20%, 19 to 20% of that. So you're looking at $1 million to run the system
Yeah, and
every year.
Customer service is on top of that because you're
No, it's
kilowatt
not,
per
it's not on
hour.
top of that.
covers
That's
that.
included, that's all included.
No, because if you look at your bill, you got kilowatt per hour right now is .0.
Well, there's two parts to your bill, yes.
And that part is made up of what, power supply and operating cost and power supply. So that would cover what you're talking about, getting it from the pole to the house. That's what constitutes, right now, the .0969. And on top of that, we have, Ameren, according to my research, charges $9 a month for a meter.
Right.
We're charging 30. You take that times 1,500 customers, that's $45,000 per month. Take that times 12, right at $500,000. And
Three
we're
Rivers
making
is
a,
charging 30, Callaway's charging, I think, 48. Quiver's right at 30,
Why is Ameren so much lower?
because the
PSC?
PSC regulates
Are
it.
they the only one
And that's
that's
what I'm
PSC?
saying, yeah, if
Okay.
they could get their service fee increased and not touch their kilowatt hour rate, I promise you they would do it, for the same reasons that we're talking about here.
plus they got like 2
They
million
have
customers versus
spread
our
over
15
a
million.
lot more customers than we do.
But, you know, you're right, I don't like increases, and I'm trying to protect the citizens currently in Herman, the businesses in Herman, and try to do what's right for them, because after all, they're the ones that own the utilities. We were elected to maintain and budget them.
Yeah.
That's where I'm approaching from.
Well, yeah, and that's how we all are trying to approach it, but there's only so long you can't have an increase. I mean, you have to have an increase when you have, 21% reduction in consumption, so our, sales have gone down 20%. And we're supposed to cover the same costs, the same overhead with that
We're
reduction.
increased overhead.
Where did
Yeah,
the
and
negative
then-
drop?
We're turning.
Premium.
Premium didn't,
That's a big issue right there.
Yeah, premium was a third of our, or, depending on how you look at it, 25 to 30%.
Did we ever figure out the base load and how that affected our rate that we're getting, the constant pull?
Well,
however you describe that?
It's fluctuated over the last few years because of the way we get billed. I mean, when they went to time of service, it made a lot of difference. Right now, we're getting billed by the hour, basically, every hour has a different rate. So, it's changed a lot. It used to be that we had a power factor that was a really good power factor, so they could schedule out our power, however, like if you looked at a graph and our peak was maybe here, but our baseline was here, they could schedule all that baseline and not have to worry about fluctuating costs. They could go out for years at a time and buy that baseline for us. And then your rate adjustment would be in that. That's why the power factor is what it is. But with premium going, that brings our power factor down, and we have a lot more adjusting peaks and valleys in our usage.
Don't have the weight of premium to average it out.
Yeah, and so, but the time of service has helped, so that isn't as big as a factor as it used to be.
The other thing that kind of saves us, as odd as this is, we don't peak with everybody else. So our peak is set by coincidental peak with the pool. And we are never on peak with the pool. And the only thing I can guess is that it's got something to do with the guest houses, that we just peak on the weekends for that reason. All the air conditioners are bumping on right away at that time or whatever. But our peak with the coincidental peak is always substantially lower than what our actual peak is. We get billed on our coincidental peak, not our actual peak. So that has saved us some. I think we're still somewhere close to a 50% load factor. But we were close to, I think, 60% before.
Yeah, we were 59 or 60 with
So-
premium.
Was there any other recommendations by the UAB as far as different ways, strategies to increase rates? Or just this one time? I know, Jesse, you would love to see
Yeah.
an annual one. I mean, you made that clear. But was there any other strategies?
Well, I mean, we discussed every kind of factor we were thinking about, but we decided to leave the meter fee alone. You could increase that, or you could decrease that a little bit and increase the rate more to balance it out, however you do it. But basically, this is what we'd come up with, was a 7.5% gets us to where we need to be to stay above water or at water, and then look at an annual. I mean, the board really wants to do an annual, like Sullivan, I think, is it Sullivan that has that? City of Sullivan has like a 1 or 2% automatic increase that the board can vote down every year.
Okay.
And then the board, you guys could also request as much information as you want from our utility board and from Jesse and stuff, just to make your decision on whether you should go up or down. And I think regardless of what happens, the current utility board wants to come every year to the board with a recommendation too.
I love that.
So, The only thing is you're gonna be looking at is, you may not be looking at a full year of the new rate. You know, you might not have enough data to make your decision at budget time every year, for a full year's data, but
You're probably 6 months behind the 8 ball every time you
Yeah.
give a recommendation.
yeah. So, any other questions for me or anything?
I want to thank you for your time coming and explaining that to us. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to ordinances.
All right, the first for this evening on for first reading is bill number 2025-13, an ordinance to approve task order number 12 for municipal building structural evaluation per the agreement for engineering services between the city of Hermann and CM Archer Group PC.
Mr. Mayor, Travis, our engineer, is here to discuss a little bit in more detail and answer your questions.
So I'm here, I know this is a big item for the city in terms of engineering services, so I'm here to answer any questions. We prepared our proposal on what we think needs to happen to get this building's bill of health where it needs to be. You all have seen that. I subsequently took those figures I presented and formulated this agreement. Here to answer any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions?
So he has the 70,420 plugged into the task order. Do you want to explain how that's broken down?
Yeah, so on our proposal, I had separated it out into items I saw were a must. And I had my notes here. So I set the base analysis as looking at the existing observed structural damage of the building. So having a geotech monitor do exterior borings, do some interior borings to see what's underneath the interior of the building, especially to see what happened on the previous work that's been done to try to shore this up. We had some level of crack monitoring in there. Basically, that study was confined to the existing building distress. When I formulated this proposal, I have reviewed y'all's plans, the original 1977 set, as well as the 2005-2006 remodel set. I noticed some things on that 2006 that you guys might want to look at in terms of some shear walls that were removed and some beams that were removed. And so that was in that additional scope of work. Also, an additional scope of work was looking at this building as a whole in terms of its resistance to wind loading. So these two wings, this wing and the police department wings, are square buildings. It's fairly easy for us engineers to analyze wind loading, how they get distributed back to the ground. The central portion of the building is not a regular shape. We have basically a pentagon with the roof beams spanning in different directions, and it's nearly impossible to do those calcs by hand. And that all needs to be modeled, and a finite element model needs to be ran to understand how the wind loads are going to the walls, into your structural elements, and ultimately down to the ground. And so I could get by with doing the base level. To be honest with you, I'm going to do that lateral thing anyways, even if it's on my spare time, just so I can satisfy my own curiosity. But I've added that in there. I wish you guys would approve it. If you don't, it's fine.
Anybody have any questions for him?
So you've identified there's only the one wing that we're really having issue with, correct?
Yeah, yes. The cracking is generally on the corrections. In the cafeteria area, which is a rectangular piece without well-defined shear walls that leads into the odd-shaped center. The base level analysis was just looking at what's making this building cracked in the observed locations and how to get the foundation corrected so it no longer settles, and how to get those cracks repaired so the cracks aren't expanding, and also getting positive connectivity from the roofing panels to the wall elements and from the wall element down to your foundation system. The 1977 plans don't show any sort of rebar rods sticking in from the stem walls up through the block wall, nor do they show any sort of positive connections between the the way these precast panels sit on top of the walls, it just shows a friction connection. We were not designed like this way these days, so.
So my question is, thank you for all your work that you've done on this, but for 70 grand, wouldn't it make more sense to begin exploring tearing it down and fixing it the right way rather than spending 70 grand just to figure out the problem and then going into it?
That sounds good, but what does it cost you, what's it gonna cost to repair this building as opposed to tearing it down?
Well, I'm just saying that one wing.
You'd have to do the cafeteria, the kitchen, the.
The whole center section of this
the other
building, which
two
city.
We may have to do it
windows
anyway,
over
is my point.
You hope not.
I don't think we're expecting that to be a recommendation, are we?
I'm not going into this, that's gonna be the
Okay.
recommendation.
That's why we're paying $70,000.
So it looks like, so the question is, do we just demo out the center part of the building?
Well,
So the next, I'm just talking this through. To answer that question, you must know how much it's gonna cost to repair the center section of the building to see which one's more cost effective. I cannot give you the answer on what it's gonna cost to repair the center section unless I do the $70,000 worth of work. Unfortunately, that's the way it is.
it just seems like a lot of money just for an exploratory, and it's not even, you won't be able to tell us a percentage, but we won't even for sure get the answer out of this.
I would not be up here asking you guys to do this, but I think there's an answer here. I don't like wasting my time, I don't like wasting y'all's time,
Okay.
so.
And another thing, nothing against you, I have no problem with you, but for something like $70,000, I would think that 3 bids would be something that we should look into.
I had Travis explain that a little bit. These are companies that he works with and has relationships with.
Yeah, so this is Archer's proposal to provide you guys with the planning document. You guys are free to shop these out. Just please do not just hand them my proposal and give them that, because I have significant hours and even defining the problem in my own head and getting this down on a piece of paper for y'all to consider. If you just hand my proposal to somebody, you have just eliminated 50 hours of engineering time from what they would have to do to give you guys a proposal. So, if you notice, part of that $70,000 is to recoup some work we've already done on this. I presented y'all a,
Isn't it about 19,000 or 20,000 for the actual boring that they're gonna be doing?
yeah, so I realized this was going to be a large number, so I've drafted up a, it's called a division of responsibilities, basically tasks associated to get this task done, and I assigned time to that. I also have some subcontract work that's necessary for us to do the work. So in terms of Archer scope, for the base bid, I was at $33,625. That includes about $9,000 worth of us trying to recoup some of our work to date. There's $19,400 in SCI as a geotechnical subconsultant. I had brought in a structural subconsultant in just as an as-needed basis. That was another $4,000. So if you total those up, that's a base proposal for $47,025. And then the additional work, which I talked about previously, would be on our time, and that was for $13,420. I tried paring this down to what the bare minimum possible was for Archer to help you guys out. This is just one opinion.
I love engineers. The amount of, the spreadsheet, the organization, you know what you're looking for.
I'm glad one of us does, Ash.
I honestly, I've had some structural engineering work done lately, and I think for a project of this scope, I think 70,000 is kind of on target. I just hope we get an answer we want to hear after you're done doing everything you're going to do.
As I hopefully it's affordable. Hopefully we're not looking at tearing down the middle section and having to somehow build a new admin building in the middle and try to patch these other 2 wings together. It'd be a nightmare logistically because we got to maintain services to these 2 wings.
Right.
Another thing, sorry, we started this measuring these cracks, but we don't really have any real data. We haven't been doing it enough to really know how severe the problem is.
Yes, and so I initiated tasked Mike to measure those cracks, not primarily for the numerical data, it was mainly so that somebody would be tasked, it'd be their responsibility every week to come in and look at those cracks purposefully, such that if something has changed majorly, it would be painfully obvious because every week they're going in there looking at it. I don't expect Mike to have the knowledge or skills to accurately monitor those cracks into usable data for myself. So what SCI would provide are fixed crack monitors that are easier to read. In terms of what Mike had, was just some transparency I ordered off of Amazon. To be honest, I have been very hesitant to look at this building because I knew that this number was going to be huge for us to actually develop you guys a solution to this problem. And so until that front porch started becoming an issue and brought to my attention, I'd stayed out of it. And I knew it would consume my life. So.
It's a black hole.
Not hyperbole either.
Any other questions? So we have an ordinance on the floor. Do we have a motion to approve this?
I'll move to approve bill number 2025-13.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
The ayes have it. We want to read that a second time.
Bill number 2025-13, for second reading, an ordinance to approve task order number 12 for municipal building structural evaluation per the agreement for engineering services between the City of Hermann and CM Archer Group PC.
Okay, second reading. I need a motion to approve second read.
I move to place bill number 2025-13 in the second reading.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have this other ordinance.
Right, so bill number 2025-14, and this wasn't on the agenda or posted at the same time as the agenda. That doesn't mean we can't pass it. It just means that I need to read the whole thing instead of just the heading.
That's fine.
And I think we can have some discussion as to why it's crucial to go ahead and get this done tonight rather than wait 2 weeks. But it's bill number 2025-14, an ordinance to approve an agreement by and between the City of Hermann, Missouri and Build Tech Construction LLC for the demolition of the City Hall front porch. Whereas the structural integrity of the City Hall building is compromised by its aging front porch and roof over it, collectively the front porch. And whereas the city has requested bids to demolish the front porch, known as the project, and whereas the lowest and best bid for completion of the project, as recommended by the city's engineering firm, was received from Build Tech Construction LLC in the amount of $35,100. And whereas a draft of the proposed agreement between the city and Build Tech is attached here too as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. And whereas the Board of Aldermen has determined that approving the Build Tech agreement for completion of the project would serve a legitimate public purpose and is in the best interests of the citizens of the City of Hermann, Missouri. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Hermann, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the Build Tech agreement is approved. Mayor Bruce Cox is authorized and directed to execute the Build Tech agreement on behalf of the city. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and adoption.
So we frequently do ordinances where we approve the bid and approve the contract at the same time. At the time the agenda was posted, I didn't have the contract yet, so I only had the bid on your agenda. And if you'll notice, it was on a motion here, and so there was the Build Tech for $35,100, and we had one other bid from Franklin County Construction for $47,000. Travis looked over all their bids, made sure that everything was in order, and recommended the low bid here from the Build Tech Construction. So we're just taking the motion and the approval of the contract and putting them together like we often do, just to save some time and get the project moving.
Right, something that we need to move on. Okay, any questions? Everybody understand?
Travis, you've worked with this company before, correct?
Yes, sir, on several municipal engineering projects.
So they're gonna be familiar with what not to touch and what not to demolish.
Correct. Hopefully the plans are self-evident, but as always, I'm available to answer any questions during the construction phase of the project. My intention is to, once they get these panels off of here, expose some of the connections or lack thereof on how those panels are sitting on these walls. That's going to aid in our, what you guys have just previously approved, to aid in their report. Because I'm very curious on if there are actually connections that aren't showing up on the 1977 plans. But yes, I have worked with Buildtech personally as project manager. I haven't had any issues with them.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Okay. There's no other questions. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve bill number 2025-14 as first reading.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We need to do that the second time also.
Bill number 2025-14 for second reading. An ordinance to approve an agreement by and between the City of Hermann, Missouri and Buildtech Construction LLC for the demolition of the City Hall front porch. Whereas the structural integrity of the City Hall building is compromised by its aging front porch and the roof over it, collectively the front porch. And whereas the city has requested bids to demolish the front porch, known as the project, and whereas the lowest and best bid for completion of the project, as recommended by the city's engineering firm, was received from Buildtech Construction LLC in the amount of $35,100, and whereas a draft of a proposed agreement between the city and Buildtech, the Buildtech agreement, is attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference, and whereas the Board of Aldermen has determined that approving the Buildtech agreement for completion of the project would serve a legitimate public purpose and is in the best interest of the citizens of the City of Hermann, Missouri. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Hermann, Missouri as follows. Section 1. The Buildtech agreement is approved. Mayor Bruce Cox is authorized and directed to execute the Buildtech agreement on behalf of the city. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and adoption.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve second reading?
I'll move to approve bill number 2025-14, second read.
Motion has been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We'll move on to resolutions.
Resolution 1351, a resolution to authorize the execution of an extension of the city's transportation agreement with Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company.
So the pipeline agreement, we renew every 3 years, and it's the pipeline that we get our gas from. Do a little map here, if you're curious. It runs all the way from Michigan through northern Texas. So yeah, we're up for renewal.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 1351?
Motion approved.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried.
Next is resolution number 1352, a resolution to approve and adopt a drug and alcohol misuse prevention policy, with policy attached.
So Corey has been working on this ad nauseum with PSC. You want to say anything, Corey?
No, this is just finally putting it in place. It's going to run parallel with our current drug and alcohol testing policy for the general employees. PSC requested that we segregate and make explicitly separate the covered employees under PHMSA, which would be our gas and pipeline staff. So that's what this covers, to get us compliant with their drug testing policies.
Correct. Everybody understand that? Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. All right. We'll move on to motions. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
John, you want to do the minutes? The minutes?
I flipped the page too quick, sorry. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? You were ready to.
I
approve
was
the minutes.
ready.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, so moved.
Motion's made, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now I'll put you go. Okay, let's, do I have a motion to pay the bills?
I was ready. Move that we pay the bills.
I have a motion to pay the bills, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Conditional use permit renewal. Owner unoccupied guest houses at the following locations: 214, 218, 223 West 4th Street for Arminius Holdings, 1225 Washington Street for Bart and Chris Tateman, 112 West 1st Street, Don and Greg Libert, 501 East 2nd Street, Timothy Cahill, and 409 Street, Washington Street, Jim Holland. Everybody good with those? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve all of these listed.
Motion's made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Conditional use permit renewals for outdoor liquor consumption at the following locations: 4 Scheller Street, Fernwell Distillery, and 315 East 1st Street, 10 Mill Restaurant. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Tin Mill Restaurant and Tin Mill Brewery in the same umbrella as far as application for,
Different addresses, don't they?
They, different addresses and different permits that renew at different times, they got them in different
just wondered
origins.
why they were on the same time.
Yeah,
but-
each one's a separate.
We would love to make it all
Have
one.
one, yeah, right. I understand. Any other-
I'll move to approve, no other questions.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Abstain.
E sustained. All right, we're skipping E because we approved the forced demolition. Quit claim deed for Rich Lauer for lots 4 and 6 East 5th Street. Is this something that we do this all the time, but
Yeah, and it specifically says on here that this is be executed and recorded to correct an error in the grantee's name and to correct the defective notary acknowledgement contained in the deed from September 24.
okay. We do these quite often when something pops up and they're doing the thing with the title company, so. Okay. I have a motion to approve the quick deed.
So moved.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Festival event application for the Hermann Masonic Temple Association for the food sales at the caboose area, September 30th, October 1, 7, 8, 14, 15, 21, 22, 28, and 29th of 2025. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We have no reports. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion is made, do I have a second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you folks for watching and being here. We appreciate y'all.
Thank you for everything you do. Thankless job, thankless job at times.